Like you know, the best defense that we have against measles is to get vaccinated. Hello and welcome back to the channel. I hope that everybody is doing well today. If you are new here, then hi, my name is Brittany and I'm a nurse practitioner. I'm also the creator of the Brittany Holzbeck NP Review. It is the most comprehensive, affordable, and accredited nurse practitioner boards review on the market. All of my courses are available at www.thenewnp.com. As always, I will make sure to have that link in the description box below. All right, so for today's video, I want to talk about some current events, and I want to keep it educational as always, as I do on this channel. As you likely know, Texas is facing a measles outbreak. And the extremely unfortunate reality is that this is largely, in fact, due to that vaccination rates are steadily declining. And I want to talk about that a bit more. But first, I need to point out that now more than ever, we need to be spreading truths when it comes to discussing vaccines and how ultimately vaccines absolutely save lives. So currently in the western part of Texas, with Gaines County being the epicenter, there are, last I checked, which would be on the 26th of March, there were confirmed 124 cases of the measles. And devastatingly, we have had the first life loss in an unvaccinated school-aged child. So anytime that a child passes away, it is absolutely heartbreaking. Children are the most vulnerable population, the most innocent, and the most deserving of all good things, right? A long, healthy, happy life in any circumstance. When a child's life is lost, it is just heartbreaking. And I don't know that there is a better way to describe that. But yeah, in this circumstance, a child did pass away from a preventable disease. As of 2000 in the US, measles was considered to be completely eradicated, and that was all thanks to science and thanks to vaccines. But in today's climate of that anti-science propaganda, we are seeing a return of measles. And now that one child has lost their life, I mean, it's really scary and it's really sad. So like I said, currently there are 124 cases that are confirmed of measles in Texas. 18 of those patients are currently hospitalized, and either most are unvaccinated or their vaccination status is unknown. Of those 124 cases, 62 of them are between the ages of 5 and 17, and then 39 of them are the age 4 or younger. And so these are children that are paying the ultimate price. And so I want to talk with you a bit more today about measles and the MMR vaccine, because I have been seeing so much misinformation lately in the mainstream media that I think now more than ever, this is such an important discussion to have and so important to educate the population on. So measles is a highly contagious virus in which 90% of susceptible persons that come in contact with someone that has measles will in fact contract it. So if a person that has the measles enters a room of 10 people, if those 10 people are susceptible, so meaning that they do not have antibodies, they've not been vaccinated, 9 out of 10 will contract that virus. So let's talk about the classic presentation of a person with measles. So first they start with an incubation period, which lasts from 6 to 21 days, a 2 to 4 day prodrome, and this usually includes fever, loss of appetite, malaise, and then that's followed by conjunctivitis, runny nose, and a cough. And so also if the patient has Koplik spots, which are those whitish, bluish spots within the cheek or that buccal mucosa, this will appear around this time as well. And then about 2 to 4 days after that fever occurs is when we will see that characteristic measles rash. And so the measles rash is an erythematous maculopapular rash that typically begins at the head, the face, and then moves downwards. Initially, it is blanchable. It is a blanchable rash, meaning that if you put pressure on it, it will lighten or the skin will whiten. And then as the rash progresses, it will become a non-blanching rash. Typically, that rash will improve after about 5 to 6 days, but the cough can last for up to 2 weeks. Also, it is noted that if the fever lasts longer than like 3 to 4 days, this is typically a red flag that some more complications are occurring associated with measles. And so what are the potential potential complications, because oftentimes people in the general public will hear measles, hear virus, and think that it's generally not threatening, but there are some very serious complications that can be associated with measles. And so what are those? Well, the most common would be respiratory tract complications. In fact, pneumonia is the most common cause of a measles related death. And also we can see brain swelling or encephalitis. And so encephalitis occurs in about 1 of 1,000 patients that have measles. And symptoms of this will typically occur within a few days of that rash. So symptoms of encephalitis include fever, headache, stiff neck, drowsiness, convulsions, even coma, and even death. If you yourself are working in patient care, direct patient care, the American Academy of Pediatrics does have this super helpful guide in how to properly triage these patients to protect, the patient, other patients, other families, and you yourself as the person caring for them. And I'll make sure to have that guide linked in the description box below, but I'll also put it up here on the screen as well so we can talk about it a little bit. Ideally, we would be triaging these patients over the phone before we actually see them in person, but we know that this is not always the case, that we're not always going to get a phone call of a person that's concerned for measles or having symptoms of measles, and our first encounter very well could be in person. And so number one, we want to have this patient masked. If for some reason they cannot wear a mask, the guide recommends tenting the patient. So this would be putting like a towel or a blanket over the patient's head, essentially covering them. You yourself should be wearing an N95 or a respirator. And ideally, these patients should be placed in an airborne precaution room. So this would be like a negative air pressure room. Now, again, in a perfect scenario, yes, every patient that was presumed to have measles or confirmed to have measles would have these proper airborne precaution rooms. But again, we know that this is not always the case when working in healthcare. We don't always have these perfect situations, especially when you are having an outbreak. So for example, when I used to work in the ER and we were drowning in COVID patients, we had 2 negative air pressure rooms. It was not feasible to only have these patients in those proper rooms. So in that circumstance, you use what you have, you do the best that you can. And so these patients, if you are concerned for measles or if they have confirmed measles, they absolutely need to be in an isolated room. They should not be sharing a room. Doors should be shut. They should not be having any visitors. No one unnecessary should be in that room. And then anyone that enters the room to take care of the patient needs to have that proper PPE. So there are a couple of different ways that we can confirm a diagnosis of measles. So I'll go ahead and I'll put those on the screen here. And any cases that are suspected or confirmed of measles needs to be reported to the health department. Treatment of patients with the measles is completely supportive. There's no specific antiviral for these patients. It is noted that vitamin A levels decrease when a person is infected with the measles, and a vitamin A deficiency can contribute to delayed recovery and therefore is associated with an increased risk for having those complications. And this is going to be of even more concern for patients that are already deficient in vitamin A before contracting the measles. They are going to be more at risk. And so because of this, it is recommended that children that have severe measles or those that are living in a setting with limited resources receive vitamin A supplementation. And so this is typically given by mouth once a day for 2 days. So it's 2 doses, unless there is a concern for a severe vitamin A deficiency, in which a 3rd dose will be given, but not until 4 to 6 weeks later. And I'll go ahead too, and I'll put the dosing on the screen here for you guys so you can go ahead and review that if you would like. It is noted that this information has been circulating in, social media about trying to prevent measles with vitamin A or trying to treat measles at home with vitamin A. And there is a lot of risk associated with this. Like I said, we're only giving 2 doses to very, very sick patients. And so overdosing someone on vitamin A is seriously risky and does not come without serious side effects. And so that is going to be an education point if you are treating patients. And so I'll put here on the slide as well some of the risks associated with overdoing it with vitamin A. And these are going to be really important education points with your patients. So like I mentioned, the best defense that we have against measles is to get vaccinated. As we have seen time and time again, childhood and adolescent immunizations are one of the most effective means at preventing measles and preventing serious complications associated with measles. So the measles vaccine is given within the MMR vaccine, which also protects against mumps and rubella. The first dose is given between 12 and 15 months, and then the second dose is given between 4 and 6 years old. And though this is like the typical dosing schedule, it is said that a second dose can be given sooner if needed. According to the research, a second dose of the MMR vaccine can be given at least 28 days following that first dose, provided that both doses are given after the child is 12 months of age. All right, but I think that is going to complete today's discussion. I just think it's so important that we continue to use our position, our platform, our role as healthcare providers, whatever. You don't have to be a nurse practitioner, a nurse, a medical assistant, anyone that's working in the healthcare industry, to continue promoting truth in regards to science, medication, vaccines. It is so important to drown out all of the false information that continues to circulate. Vaccines save lives, and we need to continue to promote that. Otherwise, I would love to hear what you guys have to say. If you're in Texas, I'm wishing you guys all of the best. I hope that everybody can stay safe, stay healthy. I know how scary this can be, but I am sending you my love. Hopefully we can get this under control and we continue to spread truth in regards to science and evidence-based research. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them below. Otherwise, as always, I wish you guys nothing but the best. Don't forget to learn something new every day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.